Could sound be the future of healing? Very likely. This is Wellness by Design. I'm your host, Jane Hogan, the Wellness Engineer, and my guest today is Jeralyn Glass, a pioneer in the field of sound healing. Now, Jeralyn had a whole career as an opera singer, and she was internationally acclaimed. Now, tragically, 9 years ago, she lost her only son. But now he is the inspiration and her guide in her new field of work, and that is with crystal singing bowls and other sound modalities. As a revered educator in her field, Geraldine is spreading healing sounds across the globe. In this episode, we talk about why and how sound healing works right down to the cellular level. So many interesting little dives that we go and little rabbit holes on sound healing. And also, Geraldine does an incredible sound bath for us with her crystal singing bowls. Make sure you don't miss that. It is a highlight. All right, enjoy the episode. Jeralyn Glass, welcome to Wellness by Design today. I'm so excited to have you here because I just love what you do. I love everything that you do. I discovered you a few years ago, the crystal bowls, all the beautiful sound healing, and you've been doing so much more. And we'll talk about that today. But just welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for being here on Wellness by Design today.
Thanks, Jane. I'm looking forward to speaking with you.
Well, I've been looking forward to it as well. You were on my summit, my Becoming Pain Free Summit, a couple of years ago, but I know there's so many new people in my audience that didn't get to hear you on that. And so I'm just delighted to introduce them to you now. And perhaps you could give a little bit of your story because you were an opera singer. Now you sing with the singing bowls and you still sing. So how did that to let everyone know how that happened, what caused that change in your life?
Yeah, so I knew as a little child, Jane, that I was going to follow a path of music. I have a distinct memory of twirling around on our front porch and singing and dancing and just feeling like I just felt so free. And I connected with God. There was a sense and something that I could hear that said, this is freedom and this will be your life path. And so I followed that life path, and it led me first to New York, where I did a Broadway production of My Fair Lady with Rex Harrison, and I was the youngest in the cast. I played the upstairs maid, which my family said that was not typecasting, and then and then I went over to Europe, and I lived in Europe for 20 years and did classical music and concerts, opera all over. So I know deep inside me what it means to be an instrument, to be a vessel. So if we talk about that, our bones and our blood are crystalline in structure, and we vibrate like a very unique vessel that each of us has our own vibrational signature. I knew that. I wouldn't have named it those words at that time, but I understand that very well, what it means to stand in a 3,000 seat concert hall, opera house, and not have any amplification, and you have to project over a full orchestra. So my body knows that. And when I first heard the crystal bowls just about 18 years ago, I was like, wow. It was like their sounds were a sound that I knew, right? There was something very familiar. And I had loved the Himalayan singing bowls. I had a set of three that I would travel with when I was performing, and I would put one on my belly, put another one on my belly. They were different notes, and play them and meditate before I would do performances. So I knew the idea of sound bowls, but when I heard the crystal sounding bowls, it was just like, wow, these are very, very unique. And so I bought myself a set of seven, and I took them home to Germany, where I was living at the time. And my son was 7, and he loved them. He would always be like, "Mommy, bring me to bed with my sound blanket." And I love these sound tickles, and he loved the bowls. And at that point, Jane, I didn't understand. Hadn't studied anything about the chakra system, or that each chakra has a corresponding note and color and meaning, etc. But I would do meditations with my son, and prayer, and we would fall asleep. So, and then I started using them with my students, and I found that if a student had a blockage, I'm a professor of voice, if they had a blockage in their voice, I could just ask them, okay, to let their voice entrain with the bowl, and lo and behold, the blockage would dissipate. So I'd say that that was my first, and it would help them get up into their range. Their voice would be more free. That was my first experience with sound really being this thing that could help us to really free ourselves. I mean, back to the way I felt as a little girl, but of course it wasn't with singing bowls. So sometimes the students would experience like then a deep memory. So one of the students entrained her voice with the bowls, and then she just remembered a childhood trauma, and she started to share about that. We worked with that in the bowl. Again, I wasn't trained as a sound therapist at that time, but I watched the miracle happen. And I watched her let go of something deep and dark and release it and come back into her joy. So, but the big one I think was when my son Dylan was 13. I had created a kids foundation there in Germany, and the purpose was that children and young people came together and we made original musical productions. And the money that we raised, about $30,000 each year, went to a music therapy program. So the kids understood it was a win-win. They understood that they could give of their talents and have fun with meeting friends and be in community, and then that effort was helping other children. So
Beautiful.
some of those kids entered a music competition, and the year that Dylan entered, he was 13, and he was accepted into the semifinals. And then a week before his semifinal audition, he said, "Mom, my voice," and his voice has started to shift. And so we used the bowls, Jane, and I had never used them like that, but he loved them and he knew them, for 6 years. So he chose a little citrine bowl, which was his favorite, and it happened to be a G note. And citrine is about, the alchemy is about personal power and confidence and courage. And it happened to resonate with the throat chakra. So that's really the bowl we used. And his voice stayed open, and he did his competition, and he said, "Hello, my name is Dylan, and since 1 week I'm no longer a soprano." And everybody laughed, and I watched him sail into his program, and his voice was free and he was free. So that was one of my first big experiences with the bowls doing something very special.
Yeah.
And so fast forward, 9 years ago he passed away, and he was 19 years old. And because we were so close, he he started communicating with me on the day that he died. On that night, I walked down to the ocean with a dear friend, and we both saw this immense shooting star that seemed to begin over my parents' home. Just, it was in the area where we grew up, and Dylan had stayed, and land arc itself over the LA basin and then land in the mountains behind LA. And then I could hear his voice, "Mom, it's like we always talked about." And he was referring to those times in childhood, meditating and praying with the bowls. "I'm home. I'm with God." And it was like, wait. Like, in that moment, you're so lost in grief, but I heard him. And that began this wondrous communication that's gone on, 9 years, and guided all the stuff that we're going to talk about. It's just like, for me, it's crazy, but I've come to learn that, sound is a bridge. Sound vibration can be a bridge, and do so much for humanity, because it's brought joy back into my life, and it's brought this eternal connection with my son that, means everything.
What an incredible journey you've had. And for just to think about we hear that we are energy, and that we an energy, it's vibration, we're just really vibration. um but you've had that like real kind of visceral connection and seen this. I know you've seen a lot more, and it's so incredible that it's also connected you with your son Dylan. And because I follow you on social media, I know that you've been getting a lot of direction from Dylan on all this amazing stuff that you're doing. I don't know how you produce it all, but I guess Dylan's helping you. You've got, well, I've got my crystal sound healing cards right here that I dearly love. These, for anyone that hasn't seen these are the most unique cards I've ever seen. Each card has a unique QR code where you can it's got a message and beautiful artwork. and the book to go with it, with the meaning. But you can also use a QR code to hear Jeralyn playing an associated crystal sound bowl. And I've never seen anything like it before. It's really, really unique. And so I've given them to lots of people. But I know you've got lots of other stuff coming up, so we'll talk about that as well. I just love that you have this guidance. So let's talk about some of your more recent projects. I know you've got a book and an app and other things coming up. So let's whatever order you'd like to talk about. Oh yeah, okay. There's the book now, just out, just out. So you can get
Yeah.
that anywhere, I guess, anywhere that's selling books.
Anywhere that's selling books. Yeah, it was. I mean, all of it. Like when you just described the cards. Um, it was shortly before Christmas. First, Dylan had been saying, "Mom, we're going to make an oracle deck," and I'm like, "Son, I'm too busy. Like leave me alone," because we have this constant communication as if he's here and with me.
Oh,
And I was like, "No, I don't have time." And then right before Christmas in 2021, it was like, "Mom, make the card deck now." And when he talks to me like that, it's like, okay, okay, okay. And so we recorded. I chose those 44. Chose the all the bowls for that, and we recorded everything on Christmas Eve. So yeah, it
special.
all came to be. And then in the beginning of January, I was on a call with Hay House, and they took it, and that began this whole ride with the card deck and the book. And the book is really about sacred vibrations, what is sacredness in our lives, why is that important, and how can sound be that medicine? Because I discovered that there's so many things, and you know that so well in your work. There's so many things that there's no pill for, and there's so many things that even if we go to a talk therapy or whatever, because I was in talk therapy sometimes 6 hours a week, just trying to process what happened. How is it my son? I mean, whoa, just trying to process it. But the talking and the talking didn't
Mm.
vibrate. It didn't help to move the pain and move the grief. It put a band-aid on it, but once I got into the sound really began to go deep inside, in underneath layers, and there's so much to say about that, but it started to move the grief. It started to move emotions that, and at that time, three different doctors asked if I would take an antidepressant. It was like, why? The real goal that I want is that my son is here, but that's not going to happen. So I need to be able to sit in grief and process it and feel it so that I can move it and heal it. I can't
Mhm.
just, numb it out. So,
And I think for a lot of, you had a grief from emotional grief, losing your son, well, transitioning to a different realm, but um, people have a lot of emotions. I believe that really emotions are behind most illnesses, pain, things like that. Um, and so we can't just cover it up. It's not the solution. And knowing that we are made of energy and we respond to vibrations, it makes total sense that sound vibration is going to play a part in our healing, in moving these emotions that can get stuck in us when we try to stuff them down and try to like just don't want to deal with it because it's painful. We need to process them. So how does how would you explain that sound can help change us physically?
yeah, I mean, I can say that when I got deeper then into the bowls, so he also guided that. It was like, you know, Mom, call the bowl dudes. We're gonna do sound healing. It was like, wait, son, I'm grieving you. Like, just give me space. But he wanted me to move into sound, and so when I first started really playing them for my own grief, what I noticed was the bowls that sound beautiful sounded like nails on a chalkboard. And the first bowl that I really used to process the grief was a selenite bowl. And the note was a G sharp, which G sharp corresponds to the zeal point chakra, which is kind of what we call the male slot to God. So, I mean, everything was perfect that that lined up. But what I didn't recognize was that as I played that sound and it was sounding like just this screeching, and I was wondering what the heck. And then I recognized that it was mirroring my grief. It was it
Mm.
was in training with that and allowing that grief to express, because 3 days later that bowl sounded beautiful. So I think, and since then I've worked with cancer patients, hospice patients and their families, veterans, children, and just leading sound baths for normal people that need stress reduction, that, need to just come deeply inside themselves and relax and find that space of calm. It's so different for everybody, but I think the main thing to say is what you were saying too. If indeed we're energy, and that energy gets compressed and compressed into this human form, when we hear the crystalline sounds, it's something that our bodies can relate to easily, as I said earlier, because we're crystalline in structure. And suddenly you hear this beautiful sound and your mind is focused. Wow, that's music. Or, oh wow, what if it's exquisite. And in that moment that your mind is focused, you drop down into your body. And so the mind begins to still. And so for many people that find it difficult to meditate, to find that sense of stillness, if they're hearing, such a sound, poof, your mind goes, oh, and then you allow yourself to drop in your body. So when we're doing doesn't matter, I've done invocations like for Maria Shriver for an Alzheimer and an event like that. When we do a 5-minute sound bath or when we do an hour sound bath, what is happening is that ability for the mind to focus and be still. And then for us to just come in and allow, healing doesn't happen here, and healing doesn't really happen with a pill. Healing is a process. And I think that's a question that I've been asking a lot lately, is really, how do we heal? And why is it that a cancer patient who had a mastectomy would say to me, I feel whole again. She said, I understand I'm not missing any part of me anymore. And they can't explain it. Or a cancer patient that just had radiation and had colon cancer, and I'm playing a certain note. And she said, it resonated right there in my body, and I could feel myself. Once again, the words they use often is, I can feel myself whole again. I'm not missing any
Interesting.
part of myself. I feel myself vital. So it's depending what is going on with each person, how people react. And that's, I think, an important thing to understand, that music is not a one size fits all. Sound is not a one size fits all. Your body will respond to what you need at that moment.
Hmm. I haven't been lucky enough to have a sound bath with you, but I have had sound bath experiences before, and it's a beautiful experience. And it's hard to explain it. You feel it right in the core of you. It's not like, oh, this is a nice sound I'm hearing. It's like in you. It's all through you. Do you think there's some aspect, Geraldine, of like the tissues, the cells in training with the bowls as well? Do you think there's like that actual vibration that's matching up, like tuning forks will all, resonate together? Is that happening, do you think?
Yeah, so on the cover of the book, we put, this is an image from the instrument, the cymoscope, that invented by John Stuart Reid, who's a British acoustic scientist. And this is what a particular bowl, an F bowl, looks like made visible. So then if you imagine the 70% approximately fluids in our body, and when the sound is vibrating, it's making those perfect coherent shapes.
Mm.
That alone, is helping to tune and bring harmony. So yes, and there's many studies. We're excited to get more and more into the science and the research behind the bowls, because there hasn't been that much at all, really. I was privileged to present in Washington, D.C. last December, and for scientists, researchers, medical doctors, it was under the auspices of the Kennedy Center, the National Endowment for the Arts, and the National Institutes for Health, and Renee Fleming Foundation. And they were blown away. They had never heard the singing bowls like that. And so we are starting to really explore what happens when you make binaural beats with the singing bowls. How are they really affecting us at the cellular level? Because they change. There's much research going on about
Mm.
exactly what they do physically to the body.
It makes sense. I've seen some of that, patterns, and anyone can do that themselves. Fill any bowl with water and sort of tap the side, and you'll see patterns form. if we are 80% water, we're going to be responding to that in a similar, the sounds around us in a similar way. So it makes sense. I think about Tesla said, if you want to understand the meaning of light, I think it might be, I'm paraphrasing here, but it's vibration, sound, vibration, and energy, right? So, and also I've been listening a fair bit recently about the pyramids and how they think that it was like a sound healing type of chambers in there, and that's what they were used for. So I don't, do you know much about that? Yeah, you been to the pyramids? You have, haven't you?
Yes, yes, yes,
Oh,
yes. I played. We weren't allowed to bring the bowls into the pyramids, but yes, it was said that there were sound healing chambers all up and down the Nile, and that sound truly has been used in every culture since the beginning of time. And interesting, when I was playing and singing in Germany, they discovered from 40 to 60,000 years ago little bird bone flutes, and those little bird bone flutes were tuned to the pentatonic scale. So that's a whole other thing. And we just created an album called Pentatonic Visions, because I'm finding that the power of five, and this also comes from the time of Pythagoras, but there's something very inherent in that scale that people know. It's There's a wonderful video that Bobby McFerrin is performing at the Science Festival in Canada in 2009, and he demonstrates the pentatonic scale, and he shares how wherever he goes in the world that people will sing along with him. They know that scale. So if we think about for a moment that 40 to 60,000 years ago, those little flutes were tuned to that scale, and that's a modern scale that we use today. And the ancient Aborigines used their didgeridoos called yadaki at that time. Like every culture, mantra from India, South America, the shamans using drums and rattles, every culture has their expression of sound and music as a medicine. It's just that I think we've lost sight of that, and maybe some of it is considered woo woo and not based in science, but we're really opening more and more doors as how sound, vibration, and frequency, and especially just these beautiful crystalline instruments, can be that thing that, first of all, can give us a deep sense of inner peace and relaxation. And then when we combine sound with our intention, there's a beautiful formula by Jonathan Goldman, a pioneer in sound healing, that says frequency plus intent equals healing, equals
yeah.
transformation. So think of the work of Dr. Emoto. When you put the vibrations of love into sound, it makes beautiful, beautiful forms. And when you put the vibrations of hate, it makes very discordant sound shapes, right? And same with what they've researched with cancer cells, that when you see a cancer cell and you look at it under a microscope, it looks very discordant and very not a beautiful form. But when you look at healthy cells, they have more of a shape that's really coherent. So there's so much now in this field. And in the book, I share something called sound RXs. So we have little sections in the book that just share stories of how myself and my practitioners that have been trained all around the world are using sound in their professional life, and what they're finding. I think it's when I talk about what sound will be, and music as medicine in the future, I think it's a very important element, because music is also the thing that it brings us together. I think, we're talking about sports, the Olympics, and just sports brings people together, and music, but music brings people together even in a more profound way, because you're not competing against the other one, and there's not like the team you want to win or whatever, the person you want to win.
Yeah.
Music includes everybody, no matter what language you speak, no matter what culture you come from, no matter what God you pray to. Music is that universal language of humanity. Everyone from every age feels it, understands it.
You're so right. And I remember going to a museum in New York, and there's a whole section just on ancient musical instruments from different cultures. And you think, wow, all these cultures knew that they had to have music in as part of their daily living. I'm curious because you have like so many bowls behind you, and I know you have many, many more too. And so these are made from different crystals, and crystals have their own vibration. Everything everything has vibration, people. Just we know that from the science. So each of these bowls has its own vibration. And they're all healing, I'm assuming. Like, is it possible to have a crystal that's not healing?
That's such a good question, Jane, because um, each of the singing bowls is made of pure quartz, and then that quartz gets infused with either a gemstone like amethyst, or a precious metal like gold or silver, or an earth substance like frankincense or charcoal, or a mineral from the earth like indium.
Hmm.
And then those get fired at high temperatures. And so, as we know quartz to be an amplifier and a transmitter and a receiver, then you imagine, okay, so the amethyst is a part of that, and the amethyst is being amplified, right? But let's say, this is where it really is that no one size fits all. Let's just say that you have something. Let's say that your birthstone is amethyst, so you love amethyst,
It
and then
is.
let's say it is, so you're a February baby.
Yeah.
Okay, so that particular bowl is an amethyst mixed with gold. Okay, so it's the note of the root chakra, a C note. But let's say you hear that sound. Let me ask you that. Where do you feel that in your body?
I am feeling it down low. Down,
Okay.
down. Yeah.
Okay, so that is, and here's the deal. What's so interesting about the bowls is that they work on many different levels. So I'm going to say to you that amethyst C with gold in it is a 528 hertz tuned bowl. Okay, so it's a little higher tuning than music today, and then it's a grounded C note, so it's working right at the root chakra. And then you have the amethyst, which works with
Up here.
the bliss body, with works with connecting you to God. Amethyst is about quantum transformation. Amethyst is really about connecting us to the divine. So where you experience that in your body, down at the root, and if we would go into a meditation, you might be able to really feel then this connection to God in a very deep and grounded way. Somebody else might say, oh wow, I feel that in my heart. Oh wow, I feel it in my feet. And this is the thing where I say it's really not a one size fits all. It's not going to be the same for everybody. But you will have a reaction to the amethyst, and that bowl will have a different sound than, let's say, if I played a C note that was 528 hertz that was a ruby. It would have a different effect on you. And that's the thing that we want to study. Like, how much does the alchemy actually affect? And when I did studies with John, and we actually used the cymoscope, and we did 9 different F note bowls, all different alchemies, different tunings, and every one had a different image, every single one. So
So interesting.
even when I did 2 F notes that were both 528 hertz, they both had completely different images. And
Wow.
that goes back, I think, to each of us having our own vibrational signature, our own vibrational fingerprint, right? And I think more important is to feel like, how do you express yourself in the world? How can you be that grounded instrument that opens its heart, that connects itself to the divine, to expansion? And then how do you walk as that? How do you do that in the world, and express your gifts?
Mm, I love that. I find it so fascinating, and I'm really excited about the science that's coming out too. I love the science, but I know a lot of people need to see the science and to help them with beliefs. I mean, but the beautiful thing about what you do is that it just feels good. And I know you said you might play your bowls for us so that the audience would get
Sure.
an experience of the singing bowls and experience for themselves how deeply beautiful this feels in your body. You can feel it. It's not just hearing it, you can feel it as well.
Yeah, I'll happily I'll play. I think what I've learned as a musician is that there's so many times in our lives that music just touches us in a way that nothing else can. And I find, especially with the bowls, that there's something sublime, and there's something that's really
Mm,
inexplicable. It's ineffable. So let's experience this set.
right. And I'll invite the audience to just, if you can, just close your eyes and just let yourself hear it and then feel it in your body.
And gently bringing the palms of your hands together and rubbing them to generate heat. I invite you to stroke them through your scalp, tenderly caress your cheeks. Gently begin to tap your shoulders, your upper arms, your wrists, tapping your chest, going down your central channel, your belly, your lower abdomen, your pelvis, and then a big stretch. And opening your eyes.
Oh, that was lovely. Oh my goodness. I could sometimes really feel it in my fingers, which was
Chakra
really,
11.
yes.
Chakra
Oh,
11, your electric body. So, you know what's interesting? Okay, so there's a Tibetan quartz copper. It's a Tibetan quartz, Tibetan copper mixed with quartz. And that is said to activate your chakra 11, your fingers, your nadis, your fingers, and your hands and your feet. Did
I could
that do it for you?
I could
Maybe.
feel that a couple of times there. So
Interesting.
yeah. And then I could tell, was there something doing like binaural beats? Because
Yes.
I could hear the wow, wow, wow,
Yes.
that kind of
Good.
thing. Yeah. Oh, just so lovely. And I know that you're very intentional about the selection of bowls that you have there too. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So, what I find as a musician that it's very important to create a sacred structure, meaning that, so for example, I don't want to just play like this. I would not play something like that. I want to create something that's coherent. This is the copper bowl. So you can feel how that creates, in music, those are called musical intervals, and that creates a sacred structure that I feel safe, right? You can just feel, whereas if I play this, you don't feel safe, right? It doesn't create that container. And what I learned is with my grief, I needed a sacred container that I could breathe and feel where I felt safe, right? Otherwise, it was just too big and too much. And I think for many of us, there's a lot of just anxiousness and unsurety and fight or flight going on because we have a lot of stuff going on in the world, from the political tensions to the wars to pandemic to just everything, right? So if I play a structure that this is the perfect fifth, right? So yes, I'm very intentional about about what to play and how to play it, because I understand that if music really is medicine, which we know that it is, I need to do it in a way that is healing. That is, yeah.
And you, well, you know that. I mean, I may not pick up on it saying, I might think, I don't like that as much, but I don't really know. But you're with your lifetime of music, you've really got that knowledge as well and the real feel for it. So I'm so grateful for you.
Oh, thank you, Jane. Oh,
I
there's, yeah.
Yeah, that was just so beautiful. So, anything else that we haven't talked about yet that you're working on that you want people to know about, or that you want to explain in any more detail that we've missed?
Sure, we've created an app that is out now. It's called Source, Be Inspired. And that was another inspiration from Dylan. Actually, 4 years ago, it was like, okay, Mom, we're going to do an app for the sacred science of sound. I'm like, what? And it's been a journey. An app is not an easy thing to create, but it has 20 visualizers on it, and it's leaders and pioneers in the field of energy medicine and sound and music. So we have Dr. Sue Morter is on it, pioneer in bioenergetics. Jonathan Goldman and his wife Andy are on it, pioneers in sound healing. John Stewart Reed, who created the cymoscope, he speaks about cymatics and the importance of the study of cymatics and what they're learning. And we show some of the actual videos of the bowls that we did experiments with. Dr. Daniel Levitin, who's a major force in neuroscience, best-selling author, he's on it. So the idea, and Victor Wooten, a 5-time Grammy Award-winning bass player, is on it. The idea is that what is this platform where we come together with all different backgrounds, but what is it that brings healing to people, and how is sound vibration and music and energy, what is that for each of us, like kind of what we were talking about earlier. How will that amethyst bowl affect you? How does the study of the cymatics in combination with bioenergetics, and there's yoga on there too, and body movement. So how do we take this information that's available, learn and embody it so that we can continue to transform and up level? So I'm really excited about the app. It's got beautiful music on it. So there's hour-long meditations that you can just fall asleep to. There's all different kinds of things. And then there's also a couple of meditations now for children. So we have two children that are on the app that are leading. They're so sweet, leading meditations. And one created a song called "Listen to the Bowls and You'll Be Happy," and it's so sweet. And there'll be new content coming every month. And it just, for me, I recognize that in our world today, I think it's so important to be open to collaborating, and that collaboration is something that's, I've learned it from being a singer and then performing with orchestras. If we don't collaborate, we have chaos, right? And if we're collaborating and everyone is tuned, then we have beautiful harmony and we have beautiful expression of sound. So I think it's important that we find the way to overcome our differences and to allow sound and music to unify us. So that's the underneath source be inspired the app. And then as kind of related to that, in the book there runs a thread of Beethoven, and I sang many times the Ninth Symphony of Beethoven, which is the famous "Joyful, joyful, we adore thee" is the theme that comes from the Ninth Symphony. And so we've created a pop meditative rendition of that. I wrote the lyrics, and it's infused with bowls, and we have different artists that are in it. So it's a combination of Johnny Harrison is in it, who's a wonderful kirtan singer. Victor Wooten, who I mentioned, who plays bass, is in it. Anders, Anders Holte, who's a Danish singer that has made some incredible music. He starts it. So it's, I don't know, it's a beautiful expression, and that is newly released also. So I'm excited to share that, the power of music to bring us together.
Do
Yeah.
you sleep, Jeralyn?
Sometimes.
So much wonderful, so many wonderful things that you're producing. I'm just so grateful for you and the work that you're doing. I'm wondering what you would suggest as a baby step someone could take today if they're going to initiate healing in their body. What would you say would be the baby step?
Yes, and what babies all do is they make sound, right? And sound, once again, like each of us has our own unique timbre, our own unique vibrational signature. So what I love to do is just, if I'm feeling stressed, which again, there's so much going on in the world, if I feel upset or anxious, I'll just sit for a moment, put a hand perhaps on my heart and a hand on my belly. But if you're having a pain like in your neck or a pain in your low back, you can put your hands there and just allow yourself to hum.
Mm, humming is so powerful.
Because when you do that, you activate your own unique sound. And then what I love to do is have people siren their voice. So meaning I would imagine that I'm starting my sound at my feet. So just playing with your voice as a siren. And what we're doing when we do that is you're activating your lower body energy, so your rootedness and your grounding. You're opening, you're centering so you feel at home and confident and comfortable. And then you're opening what we talked about, this kind of access to bliss, or closer connection to God, however you want to name it. So if I go, I feel, Jane, like I'm tuning myself. Because when we get anxious or triggered or upset, we're not in tune anymore. So if I just take a few moments, I'd invite everyone to play with that. You can do it under the shower, because the water is very helpful if you're shy about making sound. But simply beginning with your own hum and then practicing this kind of vocal humming siren up and down, I find is very helpful for
I
me.
love that. So playful, and also uh, feeling your sound. I think it's is really important too. So So it's so fun. And you're right. When we were babies, we weren't afraid to make any sounds, right? And somehow we get stifled. So yeah, just have fun with it. I love that. And Jonathan Goldman is a great he wrote a whole book about humming, right? So
Yes.
yeah, it's
Yes.
it's very powerful. Jeralyn, we'll have those links to, I mean, all these different things that you got going on. Make sure I don't know if we can have links to the books and the sound cards. If we can, we will. But if not, you can find the book. Tell us again the title of the book and the title of the app.
So the book is called Sacred Vibrations, The
Yep.
Transformative Power of Crystalline Sound and Music. And the app is called Source Be Inspired. So if you just look for Source, there's a number of those, but you have to look for Source Be Inspired.
Okay.
And then the
And
music is Pentatonic Visions. And
Pentatonic Visions.
and
Okay.
the other song is called Joy Reboot.
All right. I'm gonna look for those. I don't know if I know what pentatonic or that scale is, but maybe I'll know it when I hear it.
Hold on, let me just show you if you want to hear that. Got my little keyboard here. I mean, this is one version of the pentatonic. Da, 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 da. Different than this. Right? That's do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, but this is the
Yeah.
pentatonic. And that's the scale that Bobby McFerrin does, this beautiful and fun example of how anywhere he goes in the world, people can follow that scale.
It's
They
so
know.
cheerful. It's really
Yes,
cheerful sounding. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, I really love it. I mean, I grew up with no music. I played ukulele a little bit, and so I just don't have any of this music theory, but I am really seeing how it's all connected and very mathematical as well. And I just fascinated by how how this is all tying together in such a beautiful way. And also the cards, the Crystal Sound Healing Oracle cards, really beautiful. So Geraldine, thank you so much for being a guest on Wellness by Design, but also the great work that you're doing, because this music helps people feel calm. And just to kind of talk the language that I use a lot with my audience, when we feel calm, that's when our nervous system can relax, and that is how we heal. We cannot heal if we're not in a calm state. So listen to Geralyn's music. You can find her on YouTube as well. Help yourself get calm. It's a way that you can get calm. And in that way, you're creating the environment in which your body can heal. So thank you for creating all this calmness in the world, Geraldine.
Jane, it's my pleasure. And I think the last thing that comes to mind when you're sharing that is that there can be that structure behind great things, right? But then there is that other thing, and that's spirit, or that's this ineffable. There's something about music that you cannot put it in words. And I
Mhm.
think that's the magic and the mystery that I invite myself and everyone to continue to embrace, that music creates that structure, and then it gives us this expansiveness to really breathe and feel beyond this.
So true. That's what we all often feel with the right kind of music. We feel that expansiveness, right? And you can't define it or hold it in your hand, but you know it's real. Thank you so much, Geraldine, and thank you to all the people watching and listening. And I know that you enjoy that. Let us know in the comments what you thought, and please share this with someone else who needs to feel more calm today. All right, we'll see you again
Thank you,
soon.
Jane.